Hi, and thanks for coming back to the Woodwork Journey channel. Sorry it's been a little while. I've had a couple of harsh weeks when it's come to the fibromyalgia, but back in the workshop again today. I have managed to do a couple of things which I can tell you about at another point. But yeah, back on the workshop today to carry on with this. Now, we've got a design revision, which I will talk to you about. And today I will be not making these, but I'll be making a tool that will allow me to make these later on down the line. And the reason I say that is because I've been having quite the issue with this. So getting this stand at the bottom here has been somewhat problematic, because if it's stuck in place, then it's something where postage is awkward, because you'd need to have a box or something at least that wide. And obviously that's a point that if stuff kind of gets put on top of it, that can get crushed. So I did think about the idea of having some kind of dovetail arrangement in there, so I could kind of slide it in, but then you'd be making a dovetail on this piece at an angle, which would be time consuming and something that I didn't want to do, and be somewhat problematic. Just putting dowels in it wasn't an idea. Well, it was an idea, but it wasn't workable, because they would work themselves loose with expansion and contraction of the wood. And a hinge would, because I did think about having this so it kind of it flips from the top, and it could kind of flip all the way around and stop there, but then you're using a hinge and it would be somewhat unattractive. Another idea was for for this to be taller and have a hinge kind of that allows it to flatten against it. So rather than kind of coming up and around, it would flatten against the stand, but that wouldn't work either. So I've been through a bunch of things, and to be honest with you, because I've been having a lot of downtime because of the fibro, I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's been stressing me out, because it's just been something that I've not been able to figure out. So my dad came over today. We normally play backgammon once or twice a week, but we hung out in here, and it was brilliant because I got the opportunity to bounce ideas off of him, and it's wonderful. He comes up with some cracking ideas now and then, but it's just brilliant to be able to talk to someone about this. I mean, I do it with my wife from time to time. I'll try and explain something, and she gives zero craps about what I'm doing, but the very fact that I'm explaining it to somebody else gets super helpful. And yeah, so I would strongly suggest that if you've got any woodworker friends, brilliant. But if you haven't, then just find someone who's willing to listen while you talk nonsense at them. Anyway, let me show you what my solution for this is, because I've made this, which is my my solution. So what I've done is I've actually made this, which is another just a bit of scrap wood, and just to get the angle. So this angle is about 30 degrees. So that's something that I have to keep in mind. But how have I fixed it this time? Well, fairly simply, magnets. What I've done is I put a dowel inside there, and throwing that into the middle of both of them, and then the magnets will keep that. So even if there is expansion and contraction inside the dowel housing, it'll be glued in on one side, but then the magnets will stop it going any further than that, and will stop it sort of coming apart by accident. There'll be extra strength going through there because the dowel is going through, and everyone's a winner. So using this idea, using the magnets, it means that it's going to be nice and stable, it's not going anywhere, and it's just an extra layer of defense. The dowel should, even if it was loose, it should offer some level of security. But yeah, doing that, job's a good one. You can feel it click into place. So, you know, magnets. However, the magnets that I've got aren't powerful enough, so I've got some 3x6mm magnets coming in, which will be 6mm wide, 3mm deep, and hopefully they'll be strong enough to do it. However, what I need to do, obviously, is because we're going to be drilling in at an angle, or drilling in straight, but it needs a jig. And in order for the jig to work, I need to make a table for my drill press. It's only a cheap and cheerful drill press, but hopefully a table will assist with this and make sure that I can make repeatable cuts. That was my phone, sorry about that. Repeatable holes in the same places time after time, which will help the sort of constant generation of the product. So we're going to make a table today, but this is all part of the journey, so I figured I'd bring you along with me. So this is my old Hilker bench drilling machine, so drill press kind of affair. This was a car boot sale kind of bargain. Didn't work when we first got it, and it just needed a new power lead fitted. Once that was done, jobs are good. And the belt at the top is far too small, so it's very, very tight, and so I can't actually take it off to change the speeds or whatever on this one. And the motor is kind of pulled up as far as it'll go as well, so there's no chance of being able to change that. So I do need to get a new belt for that actually fits at some point. That'll be good. It doesn't have a huge amount of depth to it, which is something I'd like to change at some point in time in the future, but it is what it is. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make a table that will go, by the way, if you wonder why I look down here, it's because there's a monitor there so I can see what I've got going on. So yeah, I'm going to make a table, not out of this, but so we can pop it on there, stick a movable fence on the back, which means I haven't got any T-tracks, so I'm going to have to make my own, and we will have a fence that can move back and forth, and then I'll be able to make sure that I have a jig so it allows me to do repeatable cuts in exactly the same place time after time after time for the new design of the How's Your Father. So jobs are good in. Let's get this table made. All right, so to make the table, what I've got is some, I think this is about 18mm ply. It's nothing super special, but I think it's about 18mm. Now it's not quite as wide as I would like it, but it is what it is. So we're just going to make the best of it, and I think it'll still do the job for which it's intended. But to ensure that I get that cut up reasonably square, let's take the fence off and get my old crosscut sled in place. So we'll get that going across there. Everyone's a winner. I'm not using any particular measurements on this, by the way. I'm just making up as I go along, and I think that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to mark out two channels down the side there that I'm going to use to make the kind of T-track kind of vibe that's not really T-track. It's a homemade. You'll see. These don't have to be precise because they can be whatever you want them to be. I'm just making sure that I've got plenty of space here so I can then put the for like surround pieces underneath to make sure that it attaches to the drill press nice and comfortably. So yeah, I've just made these nice and wide apart, and that should do the trick. So these are the two router bits that I'm going to be using. We've got this one, which is not ideal, to be fair. I'm not a huge fan of these. I think this is just a cheap and cheerful cutter. This one is a spiral bit. That's not a compression bit, so that is going to do the final cutting. You'll see what I'm going to be doing with these in a moment, but we're going to start off with the thicker one. No, we won't, because this one has got a larger shank size. This one I think is 1/4 of an inch, so this one is whatever the next size up is. The problem is with this one, I have actually I've chipped a bit off the end of it, so we're going to have to just see if it'll do the trick. You can see that that bit there has been chipped off, so it's not super. The only other one I've got is much larger, and I think that's way too excessive for what I'm going to need. But yeah, so we'll try and use the broken one, although not ideal. We've got one corner that is that seems to be in shape, and the other one's been knocked off, so we'll see if it's enough. If it doesn't work, we'll have to change out and use the much bigger one. Okay, so those lines that we put in here, we're going to have to put those reasonably. Again, it doesn't have to be precise. Let's not get too bogged down in the kind of accuracy of this, because in this instance, it just doesn't need it. So I'm making sure that that line is pretty much in the middle of there, and that'll do me. Again, doesn't have to be precise. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that we can raise the cutter so it's about halfway. Let's just spin that around so I can have the high point of the blade. So it's about halfway into the ply. So like that should do the trick. Let's get cutting. Okay, so I think we've got a little bit of burning going on, but we've done it, and that's what I wanted to achieve. So we've got this nice kind of halfway through kind of finish. Now, the important thing to do now is not to move the fence, but I will give this a little bit of a clean up before we go any further. Okay, so as I said, the important thing is to not move that fence, because the next bit that we put in has to be in exactly the same position, because we've got a wider bit that's cut that kind of half piece, or halfway through rather, and now we're going to use a thinner bit to go all the way through. But in order for it to be a T-track kind of vibe, we need it to be bang on in the middle. Okay, and now what's going to happen is that is going to cut all the way through and make this all lovely and gorgeous and super. So yeah, let's get this going. But we should probably make sure that it's tall enough to be able to cut. And take two. And there we go. That is the thinner at the top. We'll just have to do a little bit of tidying up here. I should have had it the other way up. And there we go. So now we've got that kind of T-track, where are we? That kind of T-track profile going on, which is exactly what we wanted. But Dean, what are we going to put in there? I haven't got any T-track bolts. Well, we're going to make some. Here we've got my Titan sander, which is absolute garbage. I've had this forever. This is a 4-inch belt, 6-inch sander, and it's just not strong enough to do anything that's worthwhile. It sort of slows down with the slightest bit of pressure. So I desperately do want a kind of a 12-inch disc. I don't use the belt very often, but a 10 or a 12-inch disc would be fantastic. So this will be getting changed out when I have the money. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using one of these carriage bolts. Now this, as you can see, has got the little round head on it. It's got a little kind of square business going on underneath there. That's irrelevant. And then we are threaded half of the way up. But normally, if I've got longer ones of these, that would be brilliant. But I've only got this size at the moment, so this is what we're going to use. In the past, I have continued the thread all the way down to make my life easier, but I don't think we're going to need that today. What we are going to do, though, is get that into some pliers. The reason we're using pliers is because this is going to get super hot. I've still got these in the pliers because I've just given this a damn good blow to misses, and yeah, be aware that this will be jolly hot coming off your sander or grinder, whatever you're going to use. But yeah, that's going to be very warm. So once that's cooled down, then we can check it, make sure we're safe, still a bit toasty, and away we go. That is the head of the bolt that we want. So now what we can do is we can slide this head into here. If we go this way so I can show you, then in at this moment in time, it means that once it's set in there properly, it can't spin, it can't do anything. So yeah, job's a good one. So there we go. We now have bolts coming through in a little T-groove that we've made ourselves. Job's a good one. So we've just got to put the fence on top of this and figure out what to do with it from there. Okay, so I've just cut another piece of the same ply, and I'm going to be using that as the fence. But obviously, as we can see, that the bolts aren't going to go anywhere near where we want them to go. So I'm going to have to cut this down shorter just in little places to allow that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my pencil. I'm going to make a little mark in the middle of that roughly, and the middle of that one, so I know exactly where they are. I'm then just putting a line up so I know exactly where they are going to be located. And then the holes that I'm going to drill inside of this are going to be oversized, so that'll be all right. But what I need to do now is make sure that I've got this that can come down and give me a lower flat piece going on right here. So looking at the height of these bolts, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to move that so, or have this part of the fence so it comes down to about there, I would say, and that'll leave enough thread poking through that I can still put a nut on there and everyone's a winner. So how I'm going to figure this out is we've got the line going right there, so I will, I don't know, let's just put, again, all guessing, but I'm going to go about 20 mil either side of it, like so. If you wanted to be more technical, then obviously you could, you know, measure everything out, but I don't see that there's a need to do that. So that's as low as we want that side of the fence to go. So let's make a nice little curve going on right about there, I reckon. And that curve looks to me like it's going to be a jam jar lid. Look at this, look, all complex curves and all sorts of nonsense. There we go, and off to the bandsaw we go. Right, so setting up the bandsaw before we turn it on. Sorry, my hand's in the way, but we want the guide to be nice and low down, so there's not much space for movement in the blade. Following the line isn't necessary, is it? I am going to be using, I think 6 mil. I think 6 mil holes should do the trick. If not, I can always go up to 8 mil if necessary. So what I've done there is I've extended the line that goes up, and I've just popped a little cross in the middle of that. Hopefully that'll be exactly where it needs to go. What I've done is I've just tidied this section up a little bit, just run a little bit of a sanding pad up and down there, did that on the top and the bottom, and used a little bit of an old sanding disc underneath as well, just to make sure that's nice and tidy. And now the bolts that we made run quite nicely through it, so that's great. And there we go. That is a movable fence that will do the trick. We've just got to make a couple of things to go on the top of there to hold it down. Okay, so what I've got going on here, I've just cut these couple of little tiny bits of hardwood, and I'm going to drill that through with the same bit that we used for the screw to get through, or for the bolt to get through. But I'm going to then enlarge it because this nut, if I can try and show you, is pretty much the right kind of size for this, and I'll show you why I'm trying to make it so small in a little while. Okay, so where I cocked up there is I didn't put it proper center, but hopefully we can overcome that issue. Okay, so that's the hole going through there. Now I've threaded a nut onto onto this spare bolt here, so we can pop that in there. And what I'm going to do now is try and draw around this. I doubt I'm going to be able to chisel this out, but I might be able to use a slightly larger drill bit to get enough of a hole to be able to set in this screw, in this nut, sorry, and then I can glue it in place. Unfortunately, my smallest chisel is still too big to be able to make the hole for the nut, so I'm going to have to make this larger with the drill press, and then just try and get the corners sorted out so I can punch in the nut. Oh, I thought we had it then. I thought we had it, but we got a split. Oh, that's upsetting. But we bodged things so far, so let's carry on bodging them, shall we? Hey, it's not pretty, and we bodged the crap out of it, but that is looking pretty much like a fence to me that can be moved. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just making sure that I'm kind of squarish. I mean, does it need to be square? No, because the fence is movable either side, so it doesn't need to be square in that respect. But what I'm doing is trying to get a rough kind of idea of about an overhang either side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw on the underside of the wood. Right, so I just cut these 3 bits of ply that were scrap, and then I'm just going to super glue those on, or CA glue those on like so, and then that should be, in fact I might go that way, and then that should hold things quite nicely. Okay, so is this going to work? Literally the first time I've just come over here to try it, and no, because the thing's in the way. Hang on. There we go, we are in. Tighten that up at the back. And away we go. That is nice and solid, and we can move that, undo those. We can move that fence forward, so we can put something in there and then make sure that we drill it the same place, the same time, all the time. Well, what a palaver. That seems to be an awfully long video. I don't know if that is going to be the case. Obviously I've not edited it yet, but we've made the fence. And so why do I need to make this fence? And it's because I need to do the regular cuts. What I did when I made this kind of test, if you like, was I used the one of these puppies right here. Let's just unscrew that all the way, because I think this is the block that I used on there. And the reason for this is because it needs to have an angle drilled in. So the reason for this is it needs to have an angle drilled in. So in order to get that angle so I could have the drill going down dead straight, I made a little jig like that, so I could hold the wood here. That would be at the right angle, so I could then drill straight down, and that would give me the spacing that I needed. So this was a little bit unwieldy. This wasn't the safest, and I wanted a way of just moving it along a little bit, because I need to drill 3 holes to go in there. So what we're going to do with this, and I'm not going to do it today, it's going to have to be next time now, is that this is that is how it sits on a flat kind of plane. If I do that there, that'll cover my eyes up, so I shouldn't have the auto thingamajig. That sits on the flat plane like that, so I need to make myself a little jig where it's at an angle, so I can drill straight down, and I need to be able to do that, and then just move it a few millimeters that way, drill again, a few millimeters that way, drill again, and then that will be the what I need. That'll be the thing. That'll be the thing. So I was debating whether or not to post all this, because it does seem that there's been an awful lot of nothing going on. But you know, when you're new to woodworking and you're trying to work stuff out, you don't have all the answers. And so by me documenting the fact that I don't have all the answers, hopefully it kind of gives you some confidence that, you know, you can just mess about. And there's things like plans and stuff for this kind of thing, I imagine, but you don't need them. I mean, none of this was overly precise because it didn't need to be. And when you're just sort of messing around doing stuff like this should, in theory, work. So I've just got to do the jig for the angle, and then we're golden. By that time, sorry, the next time I come in here, hopefully I'll have the magnets, so I can then actually make the pieces I need to make, and we can actually get into building the next stand. So there you go. If you think for some crazy reason I've earned a subscribe button just by making a fool of myself, making the ugliest thing in the world, then please do hit that subscribe button. I really want to hit that 500 mark sooner rather than later, and then it's just whoosh, to 1,000 and everyone's a winner. But yeah, I would appreciate the sub, but the next video, it may or may not be the third part of this. It depends when the magnets turn up. But yeah, we will be certainly having the next stage, which will be making the original prototype, but with the magnetized and doweled base section, which should be cool. And if that happens, then everyone's a winner. And don't forget, I'm trying to make this so it's easily repeatable. So all of this background stuff is necessary, but a gigantic pain in the ass. But we got there. Thanks very much for watching. I'll stop rambling. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.